Thanks for watching and listening to the When Love Leads podcast. You'll be hearing today from some of our special guests as they share with you stories of faith at work. You can help more people find out about the podcast by liking us on social media pages like Facebook and LinkedIn. Now, join us as we explore people of faith at work. Well, welcome back to another When Love Leads podcast. I'm Bill Marsh here with Rick Hasty once again, and our guest today is Jamie Stafford. Jamie, we've just met, so tell me about yourself.
I've been in Chattanooga now 23 years. This is kind of a pivotal time in my life because I came to Chattanooga in 2021, and I was a financial advisor. I just made the transition from being kind of a stock trader and slinging tech stocks to more of a fiduciary capacity as a, gathering assets and doing comprehensive financial planning. And so we moved from Orlando, Florida, my wife and I. She's native to Chattanooga, and her mom said, it's time to come home. I need help with the family business. They were going from 1,400 square feet to 11,000 square feet, and that was going to be an awesome task. And so she moved into Hairdresser International. She moved into the new building in 2021, and in the same month planned a wedding for 400 people. So my mother-in-law is a remarkable woman, and it's had a profound impact on life. And so, finance was my passion, which is kind of funny because I went in my freshman year to my guidance counselor and I said, I need to graduate this university without taking any more math after Algebra 1. And what did I do when I got out of school? I thought I was going to be a litigator and an attorney, and the stock market was absolutely on fire. And they were literally recruiting kids off the campus that had a gift to gab. And, I went and studied. I got my broker's license. And so, when the tech bubble burst, wow. They had police officers posted at our doors. You had stockbrokers jumping out of windows. It was a scary time. People's wealth and life savings were evaporating in seconds, and every phone call was a bad phone call. Yeah. And so there's only so much holding hands and putting out fires before you're like, wow, this is hard. I was 24 years old, and that was a lot to deal with. It was one of the most significant, speed bumps, if you will, in our nation's history for finance, for the Dow Jones and just investing in general. And so it kind of seemed like a perfect time to hit the reset button and start over. And I came to Chattanooga just in time for Union Bank of Switzerland to send me to New York on September 9th, 2001. So I was in a room with 125 other cadets, if you will. I was one of the few guys that had a couple of years experience, and someone from the kitchen stuck their head into this conference room, and the vice president of securities for North America was addressing us. He was basically the president of UBS, which was the largest money manager in the world by $1 trillion at the time. And he was a bigwig, and someone said, a plane has just flown into the World Trade Center. And so we all migrated out, and it's funny, sign of the times, he had to check his pager, and the White House paged him and said, we think there's an attack on financial centers. And that's before we knew about the Pentagon and before the plane went down in the field. So, we filtered off into the lunchroom, which happened to face the World Trade Center. And 42 or 43 minutes later, I watched the second plane go through the first tower live and in person from less than a mile. Anyway, that was my second biggest historical event to kind of participate in as a young professional. And I was just tired of that. My mom was a flight attendant of all things. And so, oh my God, I got to get a hold of my mom. Well, wait. I got to call my dad. My dad's a commercial airline pilot, and so, I'm 3 days back from my honeymoon. I'm like, come on, can I get a break, please? And so I came back home and I thought about it for about a year, and I got into the family business, and I left finance and investment banking and all of those things to become a hairdresser, of all things at 27, and hit the reset button again. And so my career has largely been in the last 23 years as a part of the ownership group at Hairdresser. Very proud to say that we've helped grow the company to 2 locations, and then 5 years ago, my wife and I kind of broke off, stayed with Hairdresser, but started a new company that's done extremely well called Revive Aesthetics and Wellness. It's a med spa here in Chattanooga, and it's now the largest by gross sales in the Southeast, and that includes major cities, Nashville, Miami. And so we're very proud of that fact. But my wife and I, we did that initially because my mother-in-law and father-in-law weren't crazy about the idea of us opening up a second location and wondering if we could manage that. And well, we kind of proved them that that we could. We were up for the job. And so and life has never been busier, and that's complicated if your spirituality is not in the right place.
Well, how did your spirituality get in the right place, Jamie?
Well, it's interesting. God puts people in your life to help you, manage the situation. And I had to make a decision here a few years ago to go on a new walk with Christ. And Mike Clay is my chief technology officer for the digital media company that we opened up. And he's an ordained Southern Baptist minister, and he's got his doctorate in theology. And we have always led with scripture when it came to how we did our business practices. And so, for example, like purpose-driven profit, right? Which is, a little bit about what Lead with Love is, right? But so treating business as a means to support ministry work and further God's kingdom. Scripture reference: what you do, work heartily and for the Lord, not for men. It's okay to be in business. It's okay to be profitable, but you have to turn around, and it has to be purpose driven. And then you've got to tithe and do all those things, but you're creating an environment where you can disciple people simultaneously and manage them, for their livelihoods. And so Mike's been a huge influence. And so shortly after Mike, I just felt compelled one day. My kids have been at Silverdale Baptist for 4 years now, and I've seen Taylor, Rick, your son, from afar. And whenever he would speak at a halftime or at before the football games, it was like a mic drop moment. I was like, did anybody else hear that? You know what I mean? And so I've been in one of my bucket list items is to be able to speak publicly and move people. And I'm not there, but he sure is. And so one day I texted him and I said, Taylor, I need to get into a Bible study, and I think you need to be a spiritual leader in my life. And I knew God was working because he said, Jamie, 4 other guys have reached out to me in probably the last month, and he's like, we've got to do this and do this now. And I think it was within 2 weeks or so. It was a short period of time, and we've been coming together regularly, and it's been a huge part of my spiritual growth as an individual, but then turn around and manifest itself in my leadership style at work. And I'm so thankful for that. Like Taylor forever has a place in my heart that will never change. Like no one's going to be able to take that away from me. And so, and we started off in 1 Timothy, and in the past, when I read scripture, it was kind of like the way I did interior decorating. I'll bring this together here quickly. I would go out shopping for furniture, and I would find something that I liked and then try to come home and put it somewhere. That's not a very good strategy, and it's very frustrating. And so one of my clients was an interior decorator, and she said, Jamie, you've got to pick a space in your house. That's the problem. Then you need to go out and find the solution. And I was like, that's kind of common sense if you think about it. But if you don't understand that, and so for scripture, I asked Taylor, I said, what has changed about how I'm reading scripture? And he says, Jamie, you're scripture mining. He's like, now that you are in the word and you are reading, it's like you have a problem and now you're looking for a solution. And so when one of the first meetings, we were going over 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2, and that hit me so hard because I'm constantly talking to my staff about being above reproach, to be sober minded. And then the reason why that was important to me is that August this year was 1 year sober for me. Right. And it was a problem. right? Like I'm embarrassed to talk about the consumptive level that I was at before we decided to hang it up. And I think there's only one way. It's cold turkey. You put it away, you don't go back, and you just deal with the consequences. So let me see. Whoever aspires to be an overseer, right? Like if you're going to be one of my managers, right? Or if you're going to be an educator and you're in a sphere of influence, you must desire to be noble. You must be above reproach, faithful, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, and able to teach. Not violent, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. And so what I saw in there was, you can't stay up until, 2 o'clock in the morning and come to work the next day. That's not fair to anybody, right? You can't be in love with money. You can't overcharge your clients, right? You can't be quarrelsome. You can quit gossiping about people. You know what I mean? And so I literally tore down our employee manual and rewrote our mission statement. And it started with First Timothy. I didn't even hide it. I'm like, here it is, team. Okay. And so what I noticed in this approach is that it wasn't like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. When I would stand up in front of the staff and I would start to talk about, where we are, where we need to go, and how we need to get there, it was like all of Jamie's corporate training. And I could see them tuning me out, right? Like, looking down at their phones. And then when you start quoting the word in front of people, man, it's like, I'm not the expert. He's the expert. One of the things that frustrates me and these football athletes now, they keep saying he is him, and it's this way of them saying like, this guy's the man. There is only one him, right? I resent that. That is blasphemous to me when I hear that on TV. And so when I'm looking at them and I'm talking to them about a Bible verse, so I'm like, he is him. This is the word. This is where the buck stops. And so it's not Jamie talking about his corporate training. I had a problem. I went to the word and here was the solution. And so if someone raises their hand and says, Jamie, are you saying that Jesus Christ thinks I should be on time? I'm like, that's exactly what he's saying. Okay. But that's the lesser of all, probably all the evils. But when it comes to judging people and, talking about them, you have a bad transfer of information, then those are all things that, start with virtues that come from the Bible. And it's made my job so much easier. I'm so much more credible now because they all stare me in the eye, but it is a stark contrast from where I was maybe 36 months ago or more, because they know I'm not drinking. They know I'm in a Bible study. I lead my meetings off with a Bible verse because it's from a problem or something systemic that's been in the salon. And it's not my word, it's his, because he is him, right? So it's made a huge impact. And since we are in a succession situation, with my in-laws, they started the salon 45 years ago, and we're carrying on, and it's a much bigger and larger operation. It's so vast at this point. The things, we've got a podcast studio upstairs. How many hair salons have a podcast studio? Okay. But I need extra help. I need Mike. I need Taylor. I need the word. Right. And it's a place where I can go to get my head right. And where, if I've got to figure out how to reach somebody, then I'm going to go to him and I'm going to let him tell the staff. So,
Well, Jamie, it's pretty doggone clear that over the course of the last couple of years, you've made scripture an integral part of your communications with your teams. How do you feel like they respond to that?
man, what day is it? In the moment. So it's been consistent. It will stay consistent. Hairdressers largely are just social beings. A lot of them are very creative and they have ADD, and Gen Z, their morals and values, right? What's right is a moving target. The field goal post does not stay still. And so I have to bring them back to what the goal is, and what is right is not a moving target. And so I have to drip and I have to stay consistent. But now that we've stayed consistent and showing them what we feel like is right, it's me telling them, I don't care if this feels good to you. Okay. That's not because you're hurting the team, but our rules and our mission to take care of the staff is based in the word. That doesn't migrate, right? And so it takes me being consistent, and we have to stay all the time. If that whole, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, is true with young people. It's gotten more challenging in the last couple of years, when you're dealing with 18 to 25-year-olds. But it's in the moment, you are right, but you come back to the moment a lot, and sometimes with the same people over and over again, and you just have to stay positive and stay consistent. And again, it's not me talking, it's him.
If we backed up a little bit, Jamie, tell us a little bit about your first exposure to Christ.
So, hey, full transparency, dad's agnostic.
Mm.
And as a child, like, I have memories of being in a Baptist church, and I have memories of being in a Catholic church, and my mom is actually Filipino. My grandmother came over with my grandfather after World War II, and she went to mass 7 days a week. My grandmother never lived close enough to us to be a spiritual influence, even though I think that she was an absolute saint and an angel, and I wish I had more time to spend with her. But I did not have the Lord in my home growing up. It was very okay for my dad to skip Sundays, and I wasn't getting any guidance and really from either parent spiritually. And so I can probably confidently say, from the time that I can remember through getting to high school, where I actually went to a Catholic high school, that there was not much structure or guidance. And I'm sad about that. One of my favorite stories is Taylor telling me, he remembers I was 15 years old and I was coming down the stairs and my dad was on his knees praying. And I don't have memories like that. I'll tell people all day long that I learned more what not to do from my parents than what to do. And that's a hard lesson, because teenage years were hard. You're a little rebellious. It's kind of the wild, wild west in your house. And it's taken me to this point to really see the light. My learning curve is still very vertical at this point. I'm so thankful for, like, my Thursdays with our Bible study, because I'm still learning, but I'm having an opportunity to take what I've learned and bring it back to the workplace, so that and I think the word to disciple is a little bit strong, but to lead with purpose and to lead from a good place, I think has done a lot for giving my wife and I credibility with the staff. And then if we've reached somebody in the meantime, hey, even better. So I'm still a student, right? I'm a freshman in my walk, but I'm enjoying it. And to get to this point, to be on a podcast with Rick and Bill, this is an honor. I was nervous. I don't have to go outside and shake it off. So,
Well, thank you. You're just being so open and sharing with us today. We're thrilled to have you, Jamie.
well, I'm glad to be here.
Jamie, you've got a tremendous business that's kind of come from nowhere. I'm not sure what anybody else, perhaps those that might be watching today, would think, but how does a bald guy grow a hair business?
It's funny. I'll tell people that being a bald hairdresser is like watching Dr. Phil do a weight loss special, because he does one once a year, where he tells people how they should be eating, and he brings in these dietitians. And at the end of it, he always says, what, I'm supposed to do these things and I'm guilty of not doing it. But it is kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, but you would think I would have hair. When I had hair, I didn't have good hair. It was very wiry, and I always had a short, flat top. But I think it speaks to passion. I'm driven. I want to. When I wake up every day, I know exactly how many dragons that I want to slay, and I'm going to, and sometimes to an unhealthy detriment. I'm going to rue the day. I'm just driven like that. I kind of buy into that whole Elon Musk strategy. You've got to work 80 to 100 hours a week, but I just feel compelled to do that. So I was going to be a good hairdresser. I was going to communicate with, my clients and be able to connect. And it's funny, in any given day, I can be an attorney, I can be a doctor, I can be a therapist. And I'm always in a position to get free information from people, because if it's a female and they're getting color, I've got their undivided attention for, 1.5 to 2.5 hours. And, you drive that connection with them. And I have learned so much, and it's been such a blessing. But at the same time, I've been able to be there for my clients. The number of times that I've had to shave someone's head for, cancer treatments, and to walk that path with them, and to have to stay in touch, but then also get that phone call that, she's passed, and thank you for being in her life, and, being someone there that could help support. And so I'm thankful to be a hairdresser. I feel like it's been a gift, and I've had an opportunity to learn, and to take in from my clients, but also give in return. And, I'll tell people, if you're, as a hairdresser, it is servant leadership. You've got to turn your me sign off and turn your you sign on. And so I don't know how strong you are with your faith. And if I'm talking to an employee, but I'm like, this isn't about you, right? It's about them. And so if you come in with that mindset, you can artistically be terrible, but be a very successful hairdresser, because you understand, what it means to connect with the client, and make the experience about them. And that's also true in faith. So we use the word servant leadership a lot, because it's critical. I mean, we've had people come in the salon, and they can't stop looking at themselves in a consultation long enough to even hear what the client's saying. I'm like, okay, you're not cut out for this. You've got to go. It's not about you. It's about
Jamie, as you've grown in the Lord, especially in these most recent years, and you look back, how do you think about your people, and how has that changed in recent years? Because you're in the people business.
Well, so I think I'm going to answer your question correctly. I look back with a little bit of regret, Bill. And the reason why is, it's like, who could I have been to the staff, 20 years ago, if I had made this walk sooner? Like, who would still be with us? You know what I mean? Because we've had, I don't know, I think we're at like number 450 or 475 for the number of employees that we've had in the last 45 years. But I'm like, gosh, what if I had been, leading this way? I mean, who could we have touched? Who could we have saved? And how could this place be better? But like, we can't live in the past, right? Like, I can't look in the rearview mirror. So I'm excited for being where I'm at now, because I can make the most profound difference now. And iron sharpens iron, and I know I'm getting sharper every day. And so I'm looking forward. But I feel like that we've, at the salon, I'm able to take young women whose last great institutional event was like prom, if they had their GED, or it was their high school graduation. I've girls have been with me for 15 and 20 years, and paid off loans, and bought cars, and bought houses, and they're the breadwinners in their homes. And like, I'm proud of that. And there's been times where we've had to take tomatoes and make lemonade. That's hard, but in the last couple of years, the communication skill, where my passion and my purpose is coming from now, is so much more pure. I feel like I'm so much more effective in being in that role, because we're a fiduciary for the entire salon. So there's 5 locations, and there's 90 employees. And so, I tell people, I'm not making this decision for me. There's 90 families that are counting on me. And so in Harriet, my mother, my father-in-law, I mean, there's a team for like hairbenders, and so I think today we're in the strongest position possible to, be that fiduciary, and create an environment where, people can be successful that don't have, undergrads, or even their associates or masters, or any of those things. Harriet and I are the only people in hairbenders, either location, that have an undergrad. But I've got girls that are working 4 days a week that are making $160,000 a year behind the chair. And like, I'm proud of that. I mean, one of my girls has 6 or 8 mobile homes and has put her, I just lied to you, gentlemen. She's put herself through undergrad, is completing law school, and is still a hairdresser at the salon. And she owns like 6 or 7 or 8 mobile homes. And she credits us for giving her the ability to do that, the communication skills, the leadership, the management training that we've given her. And she's a huge success story. God, I hope she doesn't work for us much longer, because I feel like she's cut out for such bigger things. But someone can say, Jamie, you and Harriet, like, what is your leadership style done? I'm like, Kia is a perfect example of that. She came in and did not have a college degree. She's the top producer, besides my mother-in-law, at the salon now. And she's so much bigger than the hairdresser. And so that's the kind of impact that we've had that, lets me sleep good at night and makes me feel good.
Well, that's a tremendous compliment. In fact, I was in a conversation with a chairman of the board of an organization here just last week, as we were talking about leadership. And the question in my mind is always, what are you going to leave behind? And as you're thinking about, let's say, the next 10 to 20 years ahead of you, Jamie, tell us more about what you want to leave behind.
So I love that question. And it's because I think I'm prepared for it. We've switched leadership styles when my wife and I have taken over, like, for example, at Hairdresser, all of the day-to-day operations. And I've just begging my mother-in-law to stop worrying about being the top producer and to duplicate herself. And she was able to do that with me, for example, like to create a leader, someone in the salon that can carry on the legacy. But I'm more worried about duplicate, not me specifically, but creating leaders behind me that can carry the salon on. My ultimate goal, because I don't have a child that wants to be a hairdresser or really have anything to do with hairbenders, is to do like maybe an ESOP program and sell the company to the employees. But in order to do that, you have to leave people in a structure behind so that they will assume the responsibility to carry the entity on. I think that would be the ultimate gratification, would be, to let them, the employees, and take over after, we're gone. I still think I've got a long runway before we're done doing hair. But, I would like to be able to look back and know that we've touched some lives and we've made people better, but then they feel compelled. Just like in 1 Timothy chapter 3, like, you've got to have the ability to teach, which means, hopefully one of the students or disciples you have to teach decide to transition to discipling on their own. And that would be the ultimate honor. I don't think that I'm there yet to sort of manifest that, but I'm trying to get there as fast as I can.
Well, you remind me, you've mentioned 1 Timothy 3 several times. If you go the next book over to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2 says exactly what you're referring to, which is Paul, as he's talking to Timothy, says, take this message that I've given to you in the presence of many witnesses and teach it to able-bodied men who will teach it to others. In other words, in just one sentence, Paul refers to 4 generations passing along the scriptures from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Your passion there, which is so obvious, Jamie, is really following through on the very word that was given to us 2,000 years ago now. Amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Like a fine wine, it just keeps getting better.
Well, it's quite a wine, that's for sure.
Yeah. It sounds like to me, Jamie, I mean, it's you've got multiple avenues and means of serving the Lord. Obviously, as he prospers you and you can give, as you can witness and shine as a light in a dark world, and, not set your candle under a basket, but on a hill. And as you've built and grown a prosperous business, I mean, there are 90 families that eat because of good leadership. And that's part of having dominion over the earth. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. as God uses gifts and talents and people's abilities to bless other people.
Let me back up to Rick. So he was mentioning Second Timothy 2, and so I had some notes ready for like discipleship in business. Applying discipleship principles to mentor and develop employees. Mentoring is such a huge thing. I had Matthew 28:19. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. That's a dead ringer, and I think that the part that I'm in now, like mentoring has changed because now when I'm, we're teaching, like communication skills. It's not just teaching haircutting, teaching color. Like we're having to teach color skills, but I'm also having to develop the thought process and, the values for, reaching their clients, connecting, and we're almost like parents in a way. And so in the last couple of years, I just feel like we've gotten more effective in being the professional in their lives because there's only so much you can take from your parents. And I think the challenge now is we've made them good servants to their clients, but the next challenge will be to like, how do you hone in and creating a disciple, not only just for like hairbenders, but like in Christ, right? Because, I think that there's several opportunities with people that, that can be done. I just don't think that I'm there, but that's the next goal, right? Like how do you create sort of a discipleship? And you've got to be careful at work. I don't want to, I'm fortunate that we're in the Bible Belt, and I just kind of assume that we're surrounded by Christians, but I'm kind of in an industry that's known for partying and just doing whatever. And initially when I went home, when I was not going to be an investment banker anymore, and I had to call my parents and tell them I was going to be a hairdresser, like I was embarrassed, and now I'm proud. I'm like, I tell them, the staff, like, you should be proud. Like, look what you've done. But trying to find a way to walk that line to help, be a professional in their lives. I don't want to be browbeating, but look for those opportunities to, to talk about Christ and discipleship. And I've got a system for everything. I'm not very creative. I'm so left brained. Oh my God. For me, systems unlock creativity. Like, is that possible? But that's what I'm learning from Mike. I was telling you about my chief technology officer and from Taylor, because Taylor's got it down. He made a disciple out of me. If he was like, we're all going to go jump in that fiery hole over there, I'd be like, me first. You know what I mean? Like, let's go, And so I would love to have that impact on people. And that's the goal, right? Like, how do you get to that point? Because again, I've got to walk the line. I don't want to run anybody off because, someone's saying, Jamie's trying to make a Christian out of me. I mean, there's so many more rules now with, how to talk to, especially of the opposite sex, and, making sure that we use the right words. And people are talking about pronouns, and there's all these, you had, coming out of 2020, you had the Me Too movement. And so there's so many things that we have to be careful that we talk about or introduce in work, but looking for those appropriate opportunities to do that. And you almost have to do it at work because I spend so much time there. It's like, it's my entire life. Like those are the people that I'm exposed to the most. And so that'll be the challenge. But you know what? I know that I've got the right people in my life to help me figure that out. But that'll be the next step for me. That's kind of like going and getting your master's. I think a PhD would be like if I was actually ministering in a church, but I think that'll be, I'm up for the challenge. That'll give me, more purpose and another way to sort of redefine. I won't even say work life, my life in general. And I think that would be like the ultimate gift, just to.
Can you think of times in the business's history when the Lord has worked out circumstances in a way that his hand was evident and there was no natural explanation for how something came to happen except that God blessed and intervened?
Oh, so when we first started Revive and something told me to go out and do this, so it's a medical spa. And you cannot start a medical practice in Tennessee. You have to be a doctor. They don't want smart entrepreneurial business people running medical facilities, even though that's probably the best thing for a doctor because they're the number one profession that gets, scammed and taken advantage of. But Tennessee deciphers between medical aesthetics and practicing medicine. And so I felt like this calling, we needed to go do this field. And so we reached out to a professional that was going to help us. There was a nurse practitioner. And, she talked about having a ministry, and she talked about how, she was buried in her faith, and it was a part of her life. And she had done some unethical things in the past that came back to haunt all of us. I made a massive investment in lasers to the tune of about $500,000. And I'd done a build out for a large facility, even though we had, one provider and one assistant, one front desk person it was 3,000 square feet. I mean, I was Harry and I have been smart with our money. And so, we paid the house off. And so the only reason why we were able to pay for those things is because we did a HELOC. No bank in their right mind was going to give me that kind of money on this kind of a whim. And I wound up sitting across from the table from the FBI and the DEA. And they looked me in the eye and said, "Mr. Stafford, is there anything else you want to tell us?" And I was like, oh my God. Well, there was this time in fifth grade, I hit little Dory after a Boy Scout meeting because she was pulling on my little yellow collar. I mean, I felt like, someone was staring into my soul, but, she was being investigated federally for some unethical practices in the past, not having anything to do with us. And everything that I had invested, like my kids' futures, their college, all this, I just saw it was gone. And Harry and I we have a life coach, she's a therapist, and she also is ordained in Baptist ministry. And she came and blessed Revive, and she said, "This too shall pass." And, she marked all four corners of the building with oil. And she's like, something good is going to come from here. And she's like, "I know it. And I'm telling you," but it was bleak. I'd never had a panic attack before. I used to laugh at people that said they had a panic attack. I'm like, I don't know what mental illness is. Just go defeat it. And I lost a bunch of weight. And when I was at work, I was not present. I was stressing out over watching this situation unfold. And I was in New York with a team from Hairbenders. And I'm trying to be there for them because there was a hair show and they were having classes. And I got a phone call that this individual that we had hired had pled to a felony for wire fraud. And I mean, I wanted to die. Harriet and I looked at each other, and this was the end. And I had never felt like I'd never had that feeling before. The total in debt, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I could not see any way of coming out of it. I would go, when we got back from New York, I would sit in the dark in the room with the lasers, and each one of them was the value of an undergraduate education at any university. I mean, not Ivy League, and I was like, what are we going to do? And as we came out of 2020, we made a few key hires. And everything went straight up. We did the same business practices that made Hairbender successful at Revive as we were getting started. And Dr. Cheryl blessed our business and Harriet and I. She baptized me in my backyard, and all of that. So that was kind of the real beginning to the 5-6 years ago. That was the first step with the walk. She baptized me in my backyard. And but it has been nothing but a blessing since then. We paid off all of that debt in 20 months. I took every penny we made. I'm like, I don't want to know what it feels like to have debt like this before. And that I'm strong in my faith, and that is a huge reason why. I mean, and at that time I did not have the Lord to say, it's going to be okay. Just give it to him. I took it all on myself, and it was so unhealthy. And but I'm thankful for that opportunity. That was the baptism by fire. And but I had Dr. Cheryl in our life at that time, and she's still with us. I met with her this week. And but then the culmination, Lord starts dripping on me, puts Mike in my life, and then Taylor, and then and I feel great right now. But we're, the Lord has given us so much, and it is turn around. It's time to show that favor to, other people in all of the ways. So no, that's an easy answer, Bill. That was the darkest time in my life for my wife.
You've been super generous with your time, Jamie, and I'm not sure where all this energy comes from. You must be putting power bars down and caffeine drinks on a pretty consistent basis throughout the day. I think we could talk for hours more. What do you think?
Yeah, anytime, Rick, anytime. If you need me, I'm here for you.
Well, we want to talk some more, but we're going to honor your time today, and just want to thank you so much for sharing your life with us.
Well, I think I want to leave on a stewardship verse. So, viewing business as resource, as gifts from God to be managed responsibly, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. And stewardship is what all three of us have been, that is the burden we've been asked to carry. And it's not like adulting. You know what I mean? You do it for an hour or two during the course of the day and you go back to whatever it is. It's a lifestyle. It's something that you live every day.
Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to click the like button on your app. You can find more episodes like this at our website, whenloveleads.com. While there, you can also sign up for our newsletter, where we explore many of these topics deeper, and be the first to hear about upcoming podcast topics and guests. You can help more people find out about the podcast by liking us on social media pages like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Finally, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Until next time, remember the difference it makes when love leads.